Hello there and welcome to another video from Change Tips and Tools, and it's me, Phil, the Brummie that hails from Birmingham, England, and I'm here with another Power Query video where I'm going to introduce you to Power Pivot as well, and I'm going to show you what to do with a master calendar. So in previous videos I showed you how to create different types of calendars in Power Query, and a link to that video is in the description, and I also showed you how to connect to a SharePoint list on SharePoint, and again a link to that video is also in the description, so check them out. Now in this one I'm going to show you how to put it all together and make use of that master calendar. So without further ado, let's do this. So as I said in the intro, if you want to know how to create these calendars, check out the link in the description to the previous video where I show you how to do this. So I'm going to use the dynamic calendar here, which is based off the data that I bring in, and I'm going to get rid of these other calendars that I created with you in the last video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this start finisher. So I need to go to data ribbon, queries and connections, and there's that. There's the query that creates this table. So I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to do delete. It's going to warn me. I'm just going to delete it, and then I'm just going to delete that tab there because I don't need it. Next we've got the list date 365. So again I'm going to right click on it, do delete, and then get rid of that tab. Then I've got the user date range, which is this one, so I'm going to right click on it and delete it, click delete again, and again I'm just going to get rid of this tab. And here where the user defined date range, I'm just going to delete this tab here, which is sheet 1, and delete it. Now the dynamic calendar, which as I say runs off the data, the one that we're going to keep, I want to add some columns to it as well. So I want to add the name of the month instead of a number, so our visuals are a little bit more meaningful. But here I'm going to change how this is loaded. So I'm not going to have it load as a table. I'm going to have it load to our data model, and this is where Power Pivot comes in. Now, if you haven't got this tab up here, Power Pivot, you can't see this ribbon. The way that you get it there, and this only works on Microsoft machines, Windows machines. It does not work on Mac OS machines, just so you're aware. Power Pivot is not available on Mac OS, I believe. And the way you get Power Pivot here on a Windows machine is you do File, you do Options, you go to your add-ins here, and then down here on Manage, you do the drop down and choose COM add-ins, do Go, and you just make sure that this Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel is ticked. It's already ticked for me, so I'm just going to click cancel there. But that's how you get the Power Pivot on your machine in Excel. You only have to do it once, and it'll then be available to all your future and existing Excel files. Okay, so that's important. But once you've done that, I can right click on this one and I'm going to choose load to, and I'm going to change it. Instead of being a table, I'm going to do create a connection only, and I'm also going to say add this data to the data model, which is Power Pivot, and I'm going to click that and then click OK. It's going to warn me this because obviously this is refreshed based on it currently. I'm just going to click OK and accept that. And then you can now see that this has loaded rows, and if I go to Power Pivot and do Manage, you can see now that the calendar exists within my Power Pivot functionality. So there's that data, right? So I'm going to close that down for a second. So now that I've done that, I want to add some columns to my calendar, and I also want to make some changes, because what I want to be able to do is use that calendar, that master calendar, to put a chart, to display a chart for analysis where I can see order value versus invoice value for that month. So what I'm going to do, and remember, Power Query, Power Pivot do not change source data, just so you're aware. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on sales data. I'm going to do edit. So I come back into my Power Query editor here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy my sales data table. Because I like all this, all I want is a copy of it where I've got the order data and then a copy of it where I've got the invoice data separately, which makes life easier. And I want to keep this as simple as possible. So I'm going to right click on sales data and I'm going to duplicate it. Yeah. Then this first one, now this is going to break. So if you remember in the last video when I showed you how to do this dynamic calendar, the start is looking up from the sales date to the invoice date, and the finish is looking up from the sales date to invoice date as well. But I want the date range to include the order date, so the first order date, and then the invoice date by definition, which is always 30 days after the order date. In this scenario, is going to be the later date, so I'm going to use that as my finish date. So before I do that, I'm just going to take this here and I'm going to rename it. Yeah, so up here I'm going to do sales order data. Yeah, like so, and hit return. And then on this one here, I'm going to rename it. And I'm going to call this sales invoice data. Yeah, I'm going to make sure I've got no spaces and rename that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to the order date and the order value. I'm just going to get rid of them because I only want the invoice information. I'm going to remove columns. And I'm going to go to my sales order data, and I only want the order date and order value. I'm going to click on select or invoice date and invoice value, right click on those, and I'm going to remove those columns. Yeah, and you'll notice this has gone, this is now complaining here. Now, so we've got order date, order value, and in the invoice data, I've got invoice date and invoice value. Now, notice here in my previous video where I showed you how to connect to SharePoint, again, that video is a link in the description, so check it out. I'm just going to change it because it's the wrong type. So I need to go here, and I'm going to make it a currency, like so. There you go, that's better. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this. I need to fix it now because it's errored. So I'm going to go to start. So remember, I want the start to be the sales order data, but it's going to be the order date. So I'm change that to order date and click the tick. So that's my start. And then as far as the finish, that's going to be based on my invoice data. And it's going to be the invoice date. So I just need to change this, or the table it's looking at, to be invoice. I need to do the tick. Let's put the invoice date in there. And that should fix those two errors. Because I'd renamed the tables, and that's why it complains. So I've now got everything that I need. Now all these load to a connection only, but I said I wanted to change the calendar as well. So what I'm going to do is I want to add the month name as well. So with the date column selected, I'm going to do add column, and I'm going to add the month name as well because I think it looks better when you see the full name. But I don't want it to take all the space, so I need to trim this. So here's a useful tool. So I'm going to select that column. I don't want to add a column. I'm going to transform the existing column. I'm going to use the extract capability here, and I'm going to take the first character. So you've got all these different types of ways you can extract information from your column. So I'm going to take the first characters there, I'm going to take the first 3, then click OK. And there you go, it's now changed that to be just a short month name. Yeah, perfect. Right, everything's done. So I'm going to do close and load because I can't change the way some of these work. So what I'm going to do is on this one here, let's just look at it. That's close and load 2. So I'm just going to do close and load. So everything refreshes. And where I've duplicated somewhere, it'll do the same load as I did before, which was a connection only on the sales data. So now we've got this, I need to, because if I go to on the Power Pivot ribbon and do manage, I've only got my calendar in there, and you can see now the calendar's now added that short name in there, by the way. I need to add my sales order data and my invoice data. So I'm going to right click on those, choose load to, and I'm just going to say add it to the data model and click OK. So let that refresh. There you go, that's done. So if I just check Power Pivot there, Power Pivot ribbon, and do manage. So there's the sales order data. That's all there, wonderful. So let's close that down again. Let's do the sales invoice data. So again, right click on it, do load to. At the moment, it's just a connection, but I want to add it to the data model. So I'm going to select that and click OK. And there you go, done. Now that I've done that, this is where the magic can happen, because now I've loaded that into Power Pivot and the data model, I can create a relationship between the calendar and my sales order table and my sales invoice table or data. So I'm going to go into Power Pivot, do manage, and I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible. And I've got my dynamic calendar, I've got my sales order data, I've got my invoice data, everything's looking great. So now what I want to do is create a relationship. So up here on the top, you'll see diagram view. I'm going to click that. So I'm just going to move these like so, and you can expand these, etc. And I've got my date there, so I want to connect the date to my order date. And all I'm checking here now is to make sure that there's a one-to-many relationship. So you get one and then an asterisk that denotes a many relationship. So one-to-many. I'm just making sure that the one is on the dynamic calendar because the date can only exist once. There's a singular instance of that date there, but there could be many instances of that date within here in the order table. And then I'm going to do the same with the dynamic calendar. So, and then connect that to my invoice date. So the date to the invoice date. And again, just checking one to many, perfect. Sometimes it doesn't, you just need to just watch for that. And I've now created a relationship. I can now use this. So I'm just going to save this here. I'm going to click save, and it saves the Excel file as well. And I'm just going to close that down. So once I've done that, I can now utilize that in Power Pivot. So not a normal pivot table, but in Power Pivot. So I don't need Power Query window or the querying connections open. So I'm just going to close that down. And let's start creating our Power Pivot. So the way that I'm going to do this is on the Insert ribbon. I'm going to do from the pivot table, I'm going to do the drop down, and I'm going to select from Data Model. So I'm not going to use from Table or Range like a normal pivot table. I'm going to use from Data Model. So I'm going to select that. I think I want it to be there. Let's start there. And then click OK as far as where I'm the location of my Power Pivot table. I'm going to do OK. And now over here, you'll notice it's slightly different from a normal pivot table when you're looking at it. I now can see the 3 tables here. So I've got my sales order data, my sales invoice data, and my dynamic calendar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand the order data and take the order value. I'm going to drop that in values right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the drop down. I'm going to do fill value settings, and I'm just going to change that to be order totals. Just rename it like so and do OK. I'm then going to collapse that. I'm going to open up my invoice data, take the invoice value and drop that in values like so. And again, I can, if I wish here, do invoice totals and just rename it there, and you'll notice it's changed there as well. You really only need to go into this if you want to change the format or the way that it calculates. It might be a counter, instead of a sum. So now I've got my totals. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to collapse the invoice data, and I'm going to expand my dynamic calendar, and I'm going to take the month here, and I'm going to, but I don't want the month number, I want the month name, because I want this to show on my chart. So I'm going to drop the month name into my rows here, over here. So I've now got everything in here. The next thing I want to do with this still selected, on the Power Pivot Analyze, I'm going to select Insert Slicer. And I'm going to select year, like so. Now all I want to do is I'm going to take this, I want it to go across. I don't want it to be vertical, I want it to be horizontal. So within the slicer ribbon, I'm going to change that to 10 columns. Yeah. And then I'm just going to make that a little bit wider, like so. Make it narrower. Yeah. Boom. Now that I've done that, I'm now going to select 2023. And what you'll notice is whilst the data's changing, my months are sorted alphabetically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a cell, right click on it, do sort, do more options, and I'm going to do sort month name. Yeah, I'm going to do A to Z. I'm going to do more options. I'm going to untick this sort automatically. And here in the first key sort order, I'm just going to do the drop down. And there are those months. I'm just going to select that and then click OK, and then click OK again. And now you'll notice it's now sorting the months in chronological order here. So there's a little bit of trick. Let's just check that's working. Hold on a minute, let's span that out. And select 2024. And that seems to be working fine. 2025, 2024. Now you'll notice it's gone out of order here. And again, what I believe is happening there is because there's only 1 month in 2025. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to, again, reselect it, do sort. More options, and just redo that. Month name, more options, there it is, do OK. And that's fixed it. And what's happening is whilst it's fine there, it's got all the months, there. If I've only got 1 month, it then loses that sort there. Just something to be aware of. But now that I've got that working, I can, with this selected, I can do insert, drop down, I'm going to do a clustered column chart. I'm going to right click on the field and do hide all field buttons. Let's make this a little bit bigger. There you go. Wonderful. And there is a dynamic chart using Power Pivot and using that master calendar. And that is where I'm going to end today's video. So I've shown you how to use the master calendar. As I say, check out the previous videos if you want to know how to create those calendars, and if you want to know how to connect to SharePoint, then also check out that video. All those links are in the description. And it's important to make sure that you've got Power Pivot installed. It's a very powerful tool within Excel, but it's only available in Microsoft Windows. It's not available on Mac OS. I hope you found that informative and you learned some new tricks. If so, please remember to click that like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button for future content. And as always, I wish you an absolutely wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Please take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video from Change Tips and Tools. Bye bye now.